Book 9 of the Mahabharata, the epic of ancient India condensed into English verse by Ramesh Dutt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Om123. Book 9 Drona Birth. Fall of Drona. On the fall of Bhishma, the Brahmin chief Drona, preceptor of the Kuru and Pandava princes, was appointed the leader of the Kuru forces. For 5 days, Drona held his own against the Pandavas, and some of the incidents of these days, like the fall of Abhimanyu and the vengeance of Arjuna, are among the most stirring passages in the epic. The description of the different standards of the Pandava and the Kuru warriors is also interesting. At last Drona slew his ancient foe, the king of the Panchals, and was then slain by his son, the prince of the Panchals. The book is an abridgment of Book 7 of the original text. 1. Single combat between Bhima and Shalya. Morning ushered in the battle. Upon the warriors' heart with dread. Drona, priest and proud preceptor, now the Kuru forces led. And the foe compelling Drona, pledged his troth and solemn oath, he would take Yudhishthir captive to Hastina's lofty lord. But the ever-faithful Arjuna to his virtuous elder bowed, and in clear and manful accents spake his warlike thoughts aloud. Sacred is our great preceptor, sacred is Acharya's life. Arjuna may not slay his teacher, even in this mortal strife. Saving this, command, O monarch, Arjuna's bow and warlike sword. For thy safety, honored elder, Arjuna takes his plighted word. Matchless in the art of battle is our teacher, fierce and dread. But he comes not to Yudhishthir, save over blood of Arjuna shed. Morning witnessed doughty Drona, foremost in the battle's tide. But Yudhishthir's warlike chieftains compassed him on every side. Foremost of the youthful chieftains came resistless Arjuna's son. Father's blood and milk of mother fired his deeds of valor done. As the lion of the jungle drags the ox into his lair, Abhimanyu from his chariot dragged Paurava by the hair. Jayadratha, king of Sindhu, marked the faint and bleeding chief. Leaping from his car of battle, wrathful came to his relief. Abhimanyu left his captive, turned upon the mightier foe, and with sword and hardened buckler gave and parried many a blow. Rank to rank, from both the forces, cry of admiration rose. Streaming men poured forth in wonder, watched the combat fierce and close. Piercing Abhimanyu's buckler, Jayadratha sent his stroke, but the turned and twisted sword blade, snapping in the midway, broke. Weaponless, the king of Sindhu ran into his sheltering car. Shalya came unto his rescue from a battlefield afar. Dauntless on the new assailant, Arjuna's son his weapon drew, interposing in twixt the fighters, Bhima's self on Shalya flew. Stoutest wrestlers in the armies, peerless fighters with the mace, Bhima and the stalwart Shalya stood opposed face to face. Hemp and fastening bound their maces, and the wire of twisted gold, whirling bright encircling flashes, shook their stuff the warriors bold. Off they struck, and sparks of red fire issued from the seasoned wood, and like horned bulls infuriate Madras king and Bhima stood. Closer still they came like tigers, closing with their reddened paws, or like tuskers with their red tusks, eagles with their rending claws. Loud as Indra's peals of thunder, still their blows were echoed round. Rank to rank the startled soldiers heard the oft-repeated sound. But as strikes in vain the lightning on the solid mountain rock, Bhima nor the fearless Shalya fell or moved beneath the shock. Closer drew the watchful heroes, and their clubs were wielded well, till by many blows belaboured both the fainting fighters fell. Like a drunkard, dazed and reeling, Bhima rose his staff to wield. Senseless Shalya, heavy breathing, henchmen carried from the field. Writhing like a wounded serpent, lifted from the field of war, he was carried by his soldiers to the shelter of his car. Drona still with matchless prowess would redeem his plighted word, sought to take Yudhishthir captive to Duryodhan, Kuru's lord. Vainly then the twin-born brothers came to cross the conqueror's path. Much as Lord Panchal's monarch vainly faced him in his wrath. Rank to rank the cry resounded, circling over the battlefield. Drona takes Yudhishthir captive with his weapons, sword and shield. Arjuna heard the dreadful message, and in haste and fury came, strove to save his king and elder, and redeem his loyal fame. Speeding with his milk-white coursers, dashed into the thick of war, blew his shrill and dreaded Sankha, drove his sounding battle car. Fiercer, darker grew the battle, when above the reddened plain, evening drew her peaceful mantle over the living and the slain. 2. Standards of the Pandavas. Morning came. Still round Yudhishthir, Drona led the gathering war. Arjuna fought the Samasaptaks in the battlefield afar. But the prince of fair Panchal marked his father's ancient foe, and against the doughty Drona Tristadimya bent his bow. But as darksome cloudy masses angry gusts of storm divide, through the scattered fainting foemen Drona drove his car in pride. Steeds went down, and riven chariots young Panchal turned and fled. Onward drove resistless Drona over the dying and the dead. One more prince of fair Panchal against the mighty Drona came. Ancient feud ran in the red blood of Panchal's chiefs of fame. Fated youth, with reckless valor, still he fought his father's foe. Fought and fell, relentless Drona laid the brave Satyajit low. Surging still like ocean's billows, other Pandav warriors came, to protect their virtuous monarch and redeem their ancient fame. Came in various battle chariots, drawn by steeds of every hue. Various were the chieftains' standards, which the warring nations knew. Bhima drove his stalwart horses, tinted like the dappled deer. Grey and pigeon-coloured coursers bore Panchal's prince and peer. Horses bred in famed Kamboj, fiery parrot green in hue. Brave Nakul's sumptuous chariot in the deathful battle drew. Piebald horses, trained to battle, did young Sahadev reign. Ivory white Yudhishthir's coursers, with their flowing ebon mane. And by him, with gold umbrella, valiant monarch Drupad came. Horses of a bright bay colour carried Matsya's king of fame. Varied as their various coursers, gallantly their standards rose, with their wondrous strange devices, terror of their armed foes. Water-jar on tawny deerskin, such was Drona's sign of war. Drona as a tender infant rested in a water-jar. Golden moon with stars surrounding was Yudhishthir's sign of yore. Silver lion was the standard, tiger-waisted Bhima bore. Brave Nakul's sign was red deer, with its back of burnished gold. Silver swan with bells resounding, Sahadev's onset told. Golden peacock, reached emblazoned, was young Abhimanyu's joy. Vulture shone on Ghatotkacha, Bhima's proud and gallant boy. Now Duryodhan marked the foeman, heaving like a rising tide, and he faced the wrathful Bhima, towering in his tameless pride. Short the war, for proud Duryodhan wounded from the battle fled, and his warriors from fair Anga rested with the countless dead. Wild with anger, Vagadatta, monarch of the farthest east, with his still unconquered forces on the valiant Bhima pressed. Came from far the wrathful Arjuna, and the battle's front he sought, where by eastern foes surrounded, still the stalwart Bhima fought. Fated monarch from the far east Brahmaputra's sounding shore, land of rising sun, will hail him and his noble peers no more. For his tusker, pierced by arrows, trumpeted his dying wail. Like a red and flaming meteor, gallant Vagadatta fell. Then with rising wrath and anguish, Karna's noble bosom bled. Karna, who had stayed from battle, while his rival Bhishma led. Ancient hate and jealous anger clouded Karna's warlike heart, and while Bhishma led, all idly slumbered Karna's bow and dart. Now he marked with warrior's anguish all his comrades fled afar, and his foeman Arjuna sweeping over the red field of war. Hatred like a tongue of red fire shot from Karna's flaming eye, and he sprang to meet his foeman, or to conquer or to die. Fierce and dubious was the battle, answering clouds gave back the din. Karna met his dearest foeman, and alas, his nearest kin. Bhima and Panchal's warriors unto Arjun's rescue came. Proud Duryodhan came to Karna, and fair Sindhu's king of fame. Fiercely raged the gory combat, when the night its shadows threw. Wounded men and blood-stained chieftains to their nightly tents withdrew. 3. Abhimanyu's death. Fatal was the blood-red morning, purpling over the angry east. Fatal day for Abhimanyu, bravest warrior and the best. Countless were the gallant chieftains, like the sands beside the sea. None with braver bosom battled, none with hands more stout and free. Brief, alas, thy radiant summers, fair Subhadra's gallant boy, loved of Machia's soft-eyed princess, and her young heart's pride and joy. Brief, alas, thy sunlight winters, light of war too early quenched, peerless son of peerless Arjun, in the blood of foemen drenched. Drona on that fatal morning ranged his dreadful battle line, in a circle darkly spreading, where the chiefs with chiefs combine. And the Pandavs looked despairing on the battle's dread array, vainly strove to force a passage, vainly sought their onward way. Abhimanyu, young and fiery, dashed alone into the war, reckless through the shattered forces, all resistless drove his car. Elephants and crashing standards, nigh steeds and warriors slain, fell before the furious hero as he made a ghastly lane. Proud Duryodhan rushed to battle, strove to stop the turning tide, and his stoutest truest warriors fought by proud Duryodhan's side. Onward still went Abhimanyu, Kuru strove and fought in vain. Backward reeled and fell Duryodhan, and his bravest chiefs were slain. Next came Shalya, car-borne monarch, against a young resistless foe. Urged his fiery battle coursers, stretched his dread unerring bow. Onward still went Abhimanyu, Shalya strove and fought in vain, and his warriors took him bleeding from the reddened battle plain. Next to Sasan, darkly lowering, thundered with his banded bow. Abhimanyu smiled to see him, kinsman and the dearest foe. Art thou he, said Abhimanyu, known for cruel word and deed, impious in thy heart and purpose, base and ruthless in thy greed? Didst thou with the false Sakuni win a realm by low device, win his kingdom from Yudhishthir by ignoble trick of dice? Didst thou in the council chamber with your insults foul and keen, by her flowing raven tresses drag Yudhishthir's stainless queen? Didst thou speak to warlike Bhima as thy serf and bounden slave, wrong my father, righteous Arjun, peerless prince and warrior brave? Welcome, I have sought thee often, wished to cross thy tainted path. Welcome, dearest of all victims to my nursed and cherished wrath. Reap the meed of sin and insult, drawn art thy latest breath, for I vow to Queen Draupadi, impious prince, thy speedy death. Like a snake upon an anthill, unto Sasan's wicked heart, fell with hissing wrath and fury Abhimanyu's fiery dart. From the loss of blood, Dusasan fainted on his battle car. Kuru chieftains bore him senseless from the blood-stained scene of war. Next, in gleaming arms accoutered, came Duryodhan's gallant son, proud and warlike as his father, famed for deeds of valor done. Young in years and rich in valor, for alas, he fought too well, and before his weeping father, proud and gallant Lakshman fell. Onward still went Abhimanyu, midst the dying and the dead, shook from rank to rank the Kurus, and their shattered army fled. Then the impious Jayadratha, king of Sindhu's sounding shore, came forth in unrighteous concert with 6 car-borne warriors more. Darkly closed the fatal circle, with the gulfing surges moan. Dauntless, with the 7 brave chieftains, Abhimanyu fought alone. Fell, alas, his peacock standard, and his car was broke in twain. Bow and sabre rent and shattered, and his faithful driver slain. Heedless yet of death and danger, misty with the loss of blood, Abhimanyu wiped his forehead, gazed where dark his foeman stood. Then with wild despairing valour, flickering flame and closing life, mace in hand, the heedless warrior rushed to end the mortal strife. Rushed upon his startled foeman, Abhimanyu fought and fell, and his deeds to distant ages birds and wandering minstrels tell. Like a tusker of the forest, by surrounding hunters slain, like a wood-consuming wildfire quenched upon the distant plain, like a mountain-shaking tempest spent in force and hushed and still, like the red resplendent day-god setting on the western hill, like the moon serene and beauteous quenched in eclipse dark and pale, lifeless slumbered Abhimanyu when the softened starlight fell. Done the day of death and slaughter, darkening shadows close around, wearied warriors seek for shelter on the vast untented ground. Soldiers' campfires brightly blazing, tent lights shining from afar, cast their fitful gleam and radiance on the carnage of the war. Arjuna from a field at distance, where upon that day he fought, with the ever faithful Krishna, now his nightly shelter sought. Wherefore, Krishna, uttered Arjuna, evil omens strike my eye, thoughts of sadness fill my bosom, wake the long-forgotten sigh. Wherefore, voice of evening bugle speaks not on the battlefield, merry corns nor sounding trumpet music to the warriors yield. Harp is hushed within the dark tents, and the voice of warlike song, birds beside the evening campfire tales of war do not prolong. Yudhishthir's tent is voiceless, and my brothers look so pale. Abhimanyu comes not joyous, Krishna and his sire to hail. Abhimanyu's love and greeting, blessed like blessings from above, fair Subhadra's joy and treasure, Arjuna's pride and hope and love. Softly, and with many teardrops, did the sad Yudhishthir tell how in dreadful field of battle gallant Abhimanyu fell. How the impious Jayadratha fell on Arjuna's youthful son, he with 6 proud Kuru chieftains, Abhimanyu all alone. How the young prince, reft of weapon and deprived of steed and car, fell as falls a Kshatriya warrior fighting on the field of war. Arjuna heard, the father's bosom felt a cruel cureless wound. Brave and gallant boy, said Arjuna, and he sank upon the ground. Moments passed of voiceless sorrow, and of speechless bitter tear. Sobs within his mailed bosom smote the weeping listener's ear. Moments passed, with rising anger quivered Arjuna's iron frame. Abhimanyu's cruel murder smote the father's heart to flame. Didst thou say that Sindhu's monarch on my Abhimanyu bore? He alone, and Jayadratha leagued with 6 marauders more. Didst thou say the impious Kurus stooped unto this deed of shame, outrage on the laws of honour, stain upon a warrior's fame? Father's curse and warrior's hatred sting them to their dying breath, for they feared my boy in battle, hunted him to cruel death. Hear my vow, benign Yudhishthir, hear me, Krishna, righteous Lord. Arjuna's hand shall slay the slayer, Arjuna plights his soul mood. May I never reach the bright sky, where the righteous fathers dwell. May I with the darkest sinners live within the deepest hell. With the men who slay their fathers, shed their loving mother's blood, stain the sacred bed of gurus, steal their gold and holy food. Cherish envy, cheat their kinsmen, speak the low and dastard lie. If ere comes tomorrow's sunset, Jayadratha doth not die. Jayadratha dies tomorrow, victim to my vengeful ire. Arjuna else shall yield his weapons, perish on the flaming pyre. Softer teardrops wept the mother, Joyless was Subhadra's life, Krishna's fair and honored sister, Arjun's dear and loved wife. Dost thou lie on field of battle, smeared with dust and foeman's gore, child of light and love and sweetness, whom thy hapless mother bore? Soft thine eye as budding lotus, sweet and gentle was thy face. Are those soft eyes closed in slumber, faded in that peerless grace? And thy limbs, so young and tender, on the bare earth do they lie, where the hungry jackal prowleth and the vulture flutters nigh. Golden jewels grace thy bosom, gems bedecked thy lofty crest, doth the crimson mark of sabre decorate that manly breast. Rend Subhadra's stony bosom with a mother's cureless grief, let her follow Abhimanyu and in death obtain relief. Art to me is void and cheerless, joyless in my heart and home. Dreary without Abhimanyu is this weary world to roam. And oh, cheerless is that young heart, Abhimanyu's princess wife. What can sad Subhadra offer to her joyless, sunless life? Close our life in equal darkness, for our day on earth is done, for our love and light and treasure Abhimanyu, dead and gone. Long bewailed the anguished mother, fair Draupadi tore her hair. My chaste princess, early widowed, shed her young heart's blood in tear. 4. Standards of the Kurus, Arjun's Revenge. Morning from the face of battle, night's depending curtain drew. Long and shrill his sounding sankha, then the wrathful Arjun blew. Kurus knew the vow of Arjun, heard the sankha's deathful blare. As it rose above the red field, thrilled the startled morning air. Speed, my Krishna, outspake Arjun, as he held aloft his bow. For today my task is dreadful, cruel is my mighty vow. Fiery coursers, urged by Krishna, flew with lightning's rapid course, dashing through the hostile warriors and the serried Kuru force. Brave Durmarsan faced the hero, but he strove and fought in vain. Onward thundered Arjun's chariot over the dying and the slain. Fierce Dusasan with his tuskers rushed into the fine of war, but the tuskers broke in panic, onward still went Arjun's car. Drona then, the proud preceptor, Arjun's furious progress stayed. Teardrops filled the eye of Arjun as these gentle words he said. Pardon, father, if thy pupil shuns today thy offered war. Against his Abhimanyu slayer, Arjun speeds his battle car. Not against my great Acharya is my wrathful bowstring drawn. Not against a loved father fights a loving duteous son. Heavy on this bleeding bosom seats the darkening load of woe, and an injured father's vengeance seeks the slaughtered hero's foe. Pardon then, if sorrowing Arjun seeks a far and distant way. Mighty is the vow of Arjun, cruel is his task today. Passing by the doughty Drona, onward sped the fiery car, through the broken line of warriors, through the shattered ranks of war. Angas and the brave Kalingas vainly crossed his wrathful way, proud Avantis from the regions where fair Chambal's waters stray. Famed Avanti's fated princes vainly led their highland foes, fell beneath the wrath of Arjun, stayed nor stopped his onward course. Onward still with speed of lightning thundered Arjun's battle car, to the spot where Jayadratha stood behind the ranks of war. Now the sun from highest zenith red and fiery radiance lent. Long and weary was the passage, Arjun's foaming steeds were spent. Arjun, said the faithful Krishna, arduous is thy cruel quest, but thy foaming coursers falter and need a moment's rest. Be it so, brave Arjun answered. From our chariot we alight. Rest a while the weary horses, Krishna. I will watch the fight. Speaking thus, the armed Arjun lightly leaped upon the lea, stood on guard with bow and arrow by the green and shady tree. Krishna groomed the jaded horses, faint and feeble, red with gore. With a healing hand he tended wounds the bleeding coursers bore. Watered them beside a river, by the Zephyr's soft cares, gave unto them welcome fodder, gave unto them needful rest. Thus refreshed, the noble coursers Krishna harnessed to the car, and the gleaming helmed Arjuna rushed once more into the war. Came on him the Kuru warriors, darksome wave succeeding wave, standards decked with strange devices, streaming banners rich and brave. Foremost was the glorious standard of preceptor Drona's son. Lion's tail in golden brilliance on his battle chariot shone. Elephant's robe was Karna's ensign, made of rich and varnished gold, and the bull bedecked the standard of the bowman Kripa bold. Peacock made of precious metal, decked with jewels rich and rare, Priscina's noble standard shone aloft serene and fair. Plowshare of a golden lustre, shining like the radiant flame, spoke the car of mighty Shailya, Madras king of warlike fame. Far and guarded well by chieftains, shone the dazzling silver boar, ensign proud of Jayadratha, brought from Sindhu's sounding shore. On the car of Somadatta shone a stake of sacrifice, silver boar and golden parrots, these were Salya's proud device. Last and brightest of the standards, on the Prince Duryodhana's car, lordly elephant in jewels proudly shone above the war. 9 heroic Kuru chieftains, bravest warriors and the best, leagued I come to grapple Arjuna, and on faithful Krishna pressed. Arjuna swept like sweeping whirlwind, all resistless in his force, sought no foe and waged no combat, held his ever onward course. For he sighted Jayadratha midst the circling chiefs of war. Against that warrior, grim and silent, Arjuna drove his furious car. Now the day god rolled his chariot on the western clouds aflame. Karna's self and 5 great chieftains round brave Jayadratha came. Vainly strove the valiant Arjuna, struggling against the Kuru line, charged upon the peerless Karna as he marked the day's decline. Krishna then a prayer whispered, came a friendly sable cloud, veiled the red sun's dazzling brilliance in a dark and inky shroud. Karna deemed the evening darkness now proclaimed the close of strife. Failing in his plighted promise, Arjuna must surrender life. And his comrade chiefs rejoicing, slackened in their furious fight. Jayadratha hailed with gladness, thickening shades of welcome night. In that sad and fatal error did the Kuru chiefs combine. Arjuna, quick as bolt of lightning, broke their all unguarded line. Like an onward sweeping wildfire, shooting forth its lolling tongue, on the startled Jayadratha Arjuna in his fury flung. Short the strife, as angry falcon swoops upon its helpless prey, Arjuna sped his vengeful arrow, and his foeman lifeless lay. Friendly winds removed the dark cloud from the reddening western hill, and the sun in crimson lustre cast its fiery radiance still. Ere the evening's mantling darkness fell over distant hill and plain, proud Duryodhana's many brothers were by vengeful Bhima slain. And Duryodhana, stung by sorrow, waged a still unceasing fight. In the thick and gathering darkness, torches lit the gloom of night. Karna, furious in his anger, for his Jayadratha slain, and for brothers of Duryodhana sleeping lifeless on the plain, against the gallant son of Bhima drove his deep resounding car, and in gloom and midnight darkness waked the echoes of the war. Bhima's son, brave Ghatotkacha, twice proud Karna's horses slew, twice the humble steedless Karna from the dubious battle flew. Came again the fiery Karna, vengeance flamed within his heart, like the midnight's lurid lightning sped his fell and fatal dart. Woeful was the hour of darkness, luckless was the starry sway. Bhima's son in youth and valour, lifeless on the red-field lay. Then was closed the midnight battle, silent shone the starry light. Bhima knew nor rest nor slumber through the long and woeful night. 5. Fall of Drona. Ere the crimson morning glittered, proud Duryodhan sad at heart, to the leader of the Kurus did his sorrows thus impart. Sadly speeds the contest Drona on the battle's gory plain. Kuru chiefs are thinned and fallen, and my brothers mostly slain. Can it be, O beat Brahmanas, peerless in the art of war? Can it be that we shall falter while thou speedest the battle car? Pandu's sons are but thy pupils. Arjun meets thee not in fight. None can face the great Acharya in his wrath and warlike might. Wherefore then in every battle are the Kuru chieftains slain? Wherefore lie my warlike brothers lifeless on the ghastly plain? Is it that the fates of battle against the Kuru house combine? Is it that thy heart's affection unto Pandu's sons incline? If thy secret love and mercy still the sons of Pandu claim, yield thy place to gallant Karna, Anga's prince of warlike fame. Answered Drona, brief and wrathful, fair Gandhari's royal son, reapest thou the gory harvest of thy sinful actions done? Cast no blame on youth's presumption, on a warrior's fleecy hair. Faithful unto death is Drona, to his promise plighted fair. Ask thyself, O Prince Duryodhan, bound by battle's sacred laws, wherefore fightest not with Arjun for thy house and for thy cause? Ask the dark and deep Sakuni, where is now his low device? Wherefore wields he not his weapon, as he wields the loaded dice? Ask the chief who proudly boasted, archer Arjun he would slay. Helmed Arjun sways the battle, wider now doth Karna stay. Know the truth, the gallant Arjun had no peer on earth below, and no warrior breathes Duryodhan, who can face thy helmed foe. Drona knows his sacred duty, and it is willed by heaven on high. Arjun or preceptor Drona shall in this day's battle die. Now the sun, in crimson splendor, rolled his car of glistening gold, sent his shafts of purple radiance on the plain and mountain bold. And from elephant and charger, from each bravely bannered car, lighted mailed kings and chieftains and leaders of the war, faced the sun with hands conjoined, and the sacred mantra told, hymns by ancient rishis chanted, sanctified by bards of old. Worship done, each silent warrior mounts the car or battle steed. Onward to the deathful contest did his gallant forces lead. Ill it fared with Pandav forces, doughty Drona took the field. Peer was none midst living warriors of the Brahman trained and skilled. Arjun, faithful to his promise, his preceptor would not fight. King nor chief nor other archer dared to face his peerless might. But old field, like potent poison, fires the warrior's heart with strife. Sire to son, still unforgotten, leaps the hate from death to life. Wrathful princes of Panchal, by their deathless hatred stung, saw their ancient foe in Drona, and on him for vengeance sprung. Darkly thought the ancient warrior of the old relentless field, fiercely like a jungle tiger, fell upon the hostile brood. Royal Drupad's valiant grandsons, in their youth untimely slain, victims of a deathless discord, pressed the gory battle plain. Drupad, pale with grief and anger, marked his gallant grandsons dead, and his army broken, routed, and his bravest chieftains fled. Filled with unforgotten hatred, and with father's grief and pride, rushed the king, and bold Virat charged by doughty Drupad's side. Rose a cry of nameless terror over the red and ghastly plain. Noble Drupad, brave Virat, lay among the countless slain. Burning tears the proud Draupadi wept for noble father killed. Maid and matron with their wailing fair Panchal's empire filled. Much as joyless widowed princess, for her fate was early crossed, wept with added tears and anguish for her father loved and lost. Waged the war, with fearful slaughter, Drona onward urged his way. Fate alone and battle's chances changed the fortunes of the day. Ashwatthama, son of Drona, was a chief of peerless fame, and an elephant of battle bore the chieftain's warlike name. And that proud and lordly tasker, Bhima in his prowess slew, rank to rank, from friend to foeman, then a garbled masses flew. Ashwatthama, son of Drona, is by mighty Bhima slain. Drona heard that fatal message, bent his anguished head in pain. Speak, Yudhishthir, soul of virtue, thus the proud preceptor cried. Thou in truth hast never faltered, and thy lips have never lied. Speak of valiant Ashwatthama, Drona's hope and pride and joy. Hath he fallen in this battle? Is he slain, my gallant boy? Feeble are the hands of Drona, and his prowess quenched and gone. Fleecy are his ancient tresses, and his earthly task is done. Said Yudhishthir, lordly tasker, Ashwatthama named is dead. Drona heard but half the accents, feebly drooped his sinking head. Then the prince of fair Panchal swiftly drove across the plain, marked his father's cruel slayer, marked his noble father slain. Tristadimia bent his weapon, and his shaft was pointed well, and the priest and proud preceptor, peerless Drona, lifeless fell. And the fatal day was ended, Kurus fled in abject fear. Arjuna for his ancient teacher dropped a silent filial tear. End of Book 9. Book 10 of the Mahabharata, the epic of ancient India condensed into English verse by Ramesh Dutt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Om123. Book 10, Karna, Fall of Karna. Karna was chosen as the leader of the Kuru forces after the death of Drona, and held his own for 2 days. The great contest between Karna and Arjuna, long expected and long deferred, came on at last. It is the crowning incident of the Indian epic, as the contest between Hector and Achilles is the crowning incident of the Iliad. With a truer artistic skill than that of Homer, the Indian poet represents Karna as equal to Arjuna in strength and skill, and his defeat is only due to an accident. After the death of Karna, Shailya led the Kuru troops on the 18th and last day of the war, and fell. A midnight slaughter in the Pandav camp, perpetrated by the vengeful son of Drona, concludes the war. Duryodhana, left wounded by Bhima, heard of the slaughter and died happy. Books 8, 9, and 10 of the original have been abridged in this book. 1. Karna and Arjuna meet. Sights of red and ghastly carnage they disclosed upon the plain. Mighty chiefs and countless warriors round the warlike Drona slain. Sad Duryodhana gazed in sorrow, and a tear was in his eye, till his glances fell on Karna, and his warlike heart beat high. Karna, so exclaimed Duryodhana, hero of resistless might, thou alone canst serve the Kuru in this dread and dubious fight. Step forth, Kuru's chief and leader, mount thy sounding battle car, lead the still unconquered Kurus to the trophies of the war. Matchless was the ancient Bhishma in this famed and warlike land, but a weakness for Yudhishthir palsied Bhishma's slaying hand. Matchless too was doughty Drona in the warrior's skill and art. Kindness for his pupil Arjuna lurked within the teacher's heart. Greater than the ancient grandsire, greater than the Brahman old, fiercer in thy deathless hatred, stronger in thy prowess bold. Peerless Karna, lead us onward to a brighter, happier fate, for thy arm is nerved to action by an unforgotten hate. Lead us as the martial Skanda led the conquering gods of old, smite the foe as angry Indra smote the Danabs fierce and bold. As before the light of morning flies the baleful gloom of night, Pandavs and the proud Panchals fly before thy conquering might. Priests with hymns and chanted mantra, and with every sacred rite, hailed him leader of the Kurus, chieftain of unconquered might. Ardent jars they placed around him, with the sacred water full, elephant's tusks they laid beside him, and the horn of mighty bull. Gem and jewel, corn and produce, by the armed hero laid, silken cloth of finest lustre, over his crested head displayed. Brahmans poured the holy water, birds his lofty praises sung. Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, purer Sudras, hailed him leader, bold and strong. Vanquish warlike sons of Pritha, thus the holy Brahmans blessed. Golden garments, food and cattle, joyous Karna on them pressed. Thus the holy rite concluded, Karna ranged his men in war, to the dreaded front of battle, drove his swift and conquering car. Morn to noon and noon to evening, raged the battle on the plain. Countless warriors fought and perished, car-borne chiefs were pierced and slain. Helmed Arjun, crested Karna, met at last by will of fate. Lifelong was their mutual anger, deathless was their mutual hate. And the far march shook and trembled beneath the furious rush of war, and the echoing welkin answered shouts that nations heard from far. And the thickening cloud of arrows filled the firmament on high. Darker, deeper, dread and deadlier grew the angry face of sky, till the evening sable garment mantled over the battlefield, and the angry rivals parted, neither chief could win or yield. 2. Fall of Karna. At the break of morning, Karna unto Prince Duryodhana went, thus in slow and measured accents to his inner thoughts gave vent. Morning dawns, O Kuru's monarch, mighty Arjuna shall be slain, or fulfilling warrior's duty, Karna dies the gory plain. Long through life, within our bosoms, ever burnt the mutual hate, often met and often parted, rescued by the will of fate. But yon sun, with crimson lustre, sees us meet to part no more. Gallant Arjuna's course this evening, our proud Karna's, shall be over. Room is none for Arjuna's glory, and for archer Karna's fame. One must sink, and one must sparkle with a brighter, richer flame. List yet more, in wealth of arrows and in wondrous strength of bow, Arjuna scarcely me surpasseth, scarcely I excel my foe. In the light skill of the archer, and in sight and truth of aim, Arjuna beats not, scarcely rivals, Karna's proud and peerless fame. If his wondrous bow Gandhib is the gift of gods in heaven, Karna's bow, the famed Vijay, is by Parshuram given. I, the son of Jamadagni, kings of art who proudly slayed, on the youthful arms of Karna his destructive weapon laid. Yet I own, O king of Kuru, Arjuna taught his foe excel. Matchless are his fiery coursers, peerless Krishna leads them well. Krishna holds the reins for Arjuna, Krishna speeds his battle car, drives the lightning-winged coursers over the startled field of war. Sweeps in pride his sounding chariot, till it almost seems to fly. Arjuna lords it over the battle, like the comet in the sky. Grant me, monarch, mighty Shailya, drive my swift and warlike steed, and against the car-borne Arjuna, Karna's fiery chariot lead. Shailya too is killed, like Krishna, with the steed and battle car. Equal thus I meet my foeman in this last and fatal war. Spake Duryodhana, warlike Shailya mounted Karna's sounding car. Karna sought for mighty Arjuna in the serried ranks of war. 100 milch kine Karna offers, costly garment, yellow gold, unto him who in this battle points to me my foeman bold. Cars and streets and fertile acres, peaceful hamlets rich and fair, dark-eyed damsels, lotus-bosomed, crowned with glossy raven hair. These are his, who points to Karna, Arjuna, hiding from this war, Arjuna's snowy steeds and banner, and his swift and thundering car. Karna spake, but long and loudly laughed the king of Madras land, as he reined the fiery coursers with his strong and skilful hand. Of rewards and gifts, he uttered, little need is there, I ween. Arjuna is not wont to tarry from the battle's glorious scene. Soon will Arjuna's snowy coursers shake the battle-startled field. Helmed Arjuna, like a comet, gleam with bow and sword and shield. as the forest-ranging tiger springs upon his fated prey, as the horned bull, infuriate, doth the weakling cattle slay, as the fierce and lordly lion smites the timid jungle deer, Arjun soon shall spring upon thee, for he knows not dread nor fear. Save thee then, O mighty archer, while I drive my sounding car. Pandu's son hath met no equal in the valiant art of war. Darkly frowned the angry Karna. Salya held the loosened rein, dashing through the hostile forces. Then the warrior sped amain. Through the serried ranks of battle, Karna drove in furious mood. Facing him in royal splendor, Yudhishthir fearless stood. Surging ranks of brave Nishad closed between and fought in vain. Proud Panchal, stout and faithful, vainly strove among the slain. Onward came the fiery Karna, like the ocean's heaving swell. With the sweeping wrath of tempest, on the Yudhishthir fell. Wrathful then the son of Pandu marked his noble chieftains dead, and in words of scornful anger thus to archer Karna said, Hast thou, Karna, vowed the slaughter of my younger, Arjun brave? Wilt thou do Duryodhana's mandate, proud Duryodhana's willing slave? Unfulfilled thy vow remaineth, for the righteous gods ordain. By Yudhishthir's hand thou fallest, go and slumber with the slain. Fiercely drew his bow Yudhishthir, fiercely was the arrow driven. Rocky cliff or solid mountain might the shaft have pierced and riven. Lightning-like it came on Karna, struck and pierced him on the left, and the warrior fell and fainted, as of life and sense bereft. Soon he rose, the cloud of anger darkened over his livid face, and he drew his godlike weapon with a more than human grace. Arrows keen and dark as midnight, gleaming in their lightning flight, struck Yudhishthir's royal armor with a fierce resistless might. Clanking fell the shattered armor from his person fair and pale, as from sun's meridian splendor clouds are drifted by the gale. Armorless, but bright and radiant, brave Yudhishthir waged the fight, bright as sky with stars bespangled, on a clear and cloudless night. And he threw his pointed lances like the summer's bursting flood. Once again Yudhishthir's weapons drank his fiery foeman's blood. Pale with anguish, wrathful Karna fiercely turned the tide of war, cut Yudhishthir's royal standard, crashed his sumptuous battle car. And he urged his gallant coursers till his chariot bounding flew, and with more than godlike prowess than his famed Vijay drew. Faint Yudhishthir, sorely bleeding, waged no more the fatal fight. Carless, steedless, void of armor, sought his safety in his flight. Speed, thou timid man of penance, proud insulting Karna said. Famed for virtue, not for valor, blood of thine I will not shed. Speed and chant thy wonted mantra, do the rites that sages know. Bid the helmed warrior Arjun come and meet his warlike foe. To his tent retired Yudhishthir in his wrath and in his shame, spake to Arjun, who from battle to his angry elder came. Hast thou yet, O tardy Arjun, base insulting Karna slain, Karna dealing dire destruction on this battle's reddened plain? Like his teacher Parsuram, dyes in purple blood his course, like a snake of deathful poison, Karna guards the Kuru force. Karna smote my chariot driver, and my standard rent in twain, shattered car and lifeless horses, strewed a red-green glorious plain. Scarce with life in speechless anguish, from the battlefield I fled, scorn of foes and shame of kinsmen, warriors' fame and honor dead. 10 long years and 3, Yudhishthir, joy nor peace nor rest hath seen, and while Karna lives and glories, all our insults still are green. Hast thou, Arjun, slain that chieftain as in swelling pride he stood? Hast thou wiped our wrongs and insults in that chariot driver's blood? At a distance, Krishna answered. Fiery Arjun fought his way. Now he meets the archer Karna, and he vows his death today. Anger lit Yudhishthir's forehead, and a tremor shook his frame, as he spake to silent Arjun words of insult and of shame. Wherefore, like a painted warrior, doth the helmed Arjun stand. Wherefore, useless lies Gandhi in his weak and nerveless hand. Wherefore hangs the mighty sabre from his belt of silk and gold. Wherefore doth the peerless Krishna drive his coursers fleet and bold. If afar from war's arena timid Arjun seeks to hide, if he shuns the mighty Karna battling in unconquered pride, Arjun, yield thy famed Gandhi unto warrior hands than thine. On some braver, truer warrior let thy mighty standard shine. Yield thy helmet and thy armor, yield thy gleaming sword and shield. Hide thee from this deathful battle, matchless Karna rules the field. Sparkled Arjun's eye in anger with a red and livid flame, and the tempest of his passion shook his more than mortal frame. Heedless, on the sword hilt, Arjun placed his swift and trembling hand. Heedless, with a warrior's instinct, drew the dark and glistening brand. Sacred blood of king and elder would have stained his transient steel, but the wise and noble Krishna strove the fatal feud to heal. Not before thy elder Arjun, but in yonder purple field, against thy rival and thy foeman use thy warlike sword and shield. Render honor to thy elder, quench thy hasty impious wrath. Sin not against holy Shastra, leave not virtue's sacred path. Bow before thy virtuous elder, as before the gods in heaven. Sheathe thy sword and quell thy passion, be thy hasty sin forgiven. Duteous Arjun silent listened, and obeyed the mandate high. Tears of manly sorrow trickled from his soft and altered eye. Dear in joy and dear in suffering, calm his righteous elder stood. Dear in Indraprastha's mansions, dearer in the jungle wood. Arjun seated his flashing sabre, joined his hands and hung his head, fixed his eye on good Yudhishthir, and in humble accents said, Pardon, great and saintly monarch, vessel's disrespectful word. Pardon, elder, if a younger heedless drew his sinful sword. But thy haste to yield my weapon stung my soul to bitter strife. Dearer is the bow Gandhi unto Arjun than his life. Pardon if the blood of anger mantled over this rugged brow. Pardon if I drew my sabre against my duty and my vow. For that hasty act, repenting Arjun bows unto thy feet. Grant me, gentle king and elder, brother's love, forgiveness sweet. From Yudhishthir's altered eyelids gentle tears of sorrow start, and he lifts his younger brother to his ever-loving heart. Arjun, I have wronged thee, brother, and no fault or sin is thine. Has the words of thoughtless anger escaped these sinful lips of mine? Bitter was my shame and anguish when from Karna's car I fled, rather than my bleeding bosom warrior's fame and honor bled. Has the words I uttered, Arjun, by my pain and anguish driven, wipe them with a brother's kindness, be thy elder's sin forgiven. Stronger by his elder's blessing, Arjun mounts the battle car. Krishna drives the milk-white coursers to the thickening ranks of war. Onward came the fiery Karna with his chiefs and armed men. Shailya urged his flying coursers with the whip and loosened rein. Often met and often parted, lifelong rivals in their fame. Not to part again, the heroes each unto the other came. Not to part until a chieftain by the other chief was slain. Arjun dead or lifeless Karna pressed the Kurukshetra plain. Long they strove, but neither archer could his gallant foeman beat, though like surging ocean billows did the angry warriors meet. Arjun's arrows fell on Karna like the summer's angry flood. Karna's shafts like hissing serpents drank the valiant Arjun's blood. Fierce and quick from his Gandhi angry accents Arjun woke, till the bowstring strained and heated was by sudden impulse broke. Hold, cried Arjun to his rival, mind the honored rules of war. Warriors strike not helpless foemen, thus disabled on the car. Hold, brave Karna, until Arjun mans his overstrained bow. Arjun then will crave for mercy, nor from God nor mortal foe. Vain he spoke, for wild with anger heedless Karna fiercely lowered, thick and fast on bowless Arjun countless arrows darkly showered. Like the cobra, dark and hissing, Karna's gleaming lightning dart struck the helpless archer Arjun on his broad and bleeding heart. Furious like a wounded tiger, quivering in the dark samut, with his mended warlike weapon, now the angry Arjun stood. Blazing with a mighty radiance, like a flame in summer night, fierce he fell on archer Karna with his more than mortal might. Little recked the dauntless Karna, if his foe in anger rose, Karna feared not face of mortal, dreaded not immortal foes. Nor with all his wrath and valour, Arjun conquered him in war, till within the soft earth, sinking stuck the wheel of Karna's car. Stood unmoved the tilted chariot, vainly wrathful Shalya strove, urging still the struggling coursers Karna's heavy car to move. Vainly too the gallant Karna leaped upon the humid soil, sought to lift the sunken axle with a hard unwonted toil. Hold, he cried to noble Arjun, wage no false or impious war on a foeman helpless, carless, thou upon thy lofty car. Loudly laughed the helmed Arjun, answer nor rejoinder gave. Unto Karna pleading virtue, Krishna answered calm and grave. Didst thou seek the path of virtue, mighty Karna, archer bold, when Sakuni robbed Yudhishthir of his empire and his gold? Didst thou tread the path of honour on Yudhishthir's fatal fall, heaping insults on Draupadi in Hastina's council hall? Didst thou then fulfil thy duty, when Yudhishthir's exile crossed, Krishna asked in right and justice for Yudhishthir's empire lost? Didst thou fight a holy battle, when with 6 marauders killed, Karna hunted Abhimanyu, and the youthful hero killed? Speak not then of rules of honour, blackened in your sins you die. Death is come in shape of Arjun, Karna's fatal hour is nigh. Stung to fury and to madness, faint but frantic, Karna fought. Reckless, ruthless, and relentless, valiant Arjun's life he sought. Sent his last resistless arrow on his foeman's mighty chest, Arjun felt the shock of thunder on his broad unmailed breast. Fainting fell the bleeding Arjun, darkness dimmed his manly eye. Pale and breathless watched his warriors, anxious watched the gods in sky. Then it passed, and helmed Arjun rose like a newly lighted fire. Abhimanyu's sad remembrance kindled fresh a father's ire. And he drew his bow Gandhi, aimed his dart with stifled breath. Vengeance for his murdered hero winged the fatal dart of death. Like the fiery bolt of lightning, Arjun's lurid arrow sped. Like the red and flaming meteor, Karna fell among the dead. 3. Fall of Shalya. Darkly closed the shades of midnight, Karna still and lifeless lay. Ghast and pale over slaughtered thousands fell the morrow's sickly ray. Bowman brave and proud preceptor, creep out to Duryodhan said. Tear bedimmed the warrior's eyelids, and his manly bosom bled. Leaderless the Kuru forces, by a dire misfortune crossed, like the moonless shades of midnight, in their utter darkness lost. Like a summer-dried river, where wastes the arid sand, lost its pride of freshening waters, sweeping over the grateful land. As a spark of fire consumed summer's parched and sapless wood, Kuru's lordless, lifeless forces shall be angry Arjun's food. Bhima too will seek fulfillment of the dreadful vow he made. Brave Satyaki wreak his vengeance for his son's untimely slay. Bid this battle cease, Duryodhan, pale and fateful is thy star. Blood enough of friendly nations soaks this crimson field of war. Bid them leave, the few survivors of a vast and countless host. Let thy few remaining brothers leave, for many are the lost. Kindly heart hath good Yudhishthir, still he seeks for rightful peace. Render back his ancient kingdom, bid this war of kinsmen cease. Kripa, so Duryodhan answered, In this sad and fatal strife, ever foremost of our warriors, ever careless of thy life. Ever in the council chamber, thou hast words of wisdom said, needless war and dire destruction, by thy peaceful counsel stayed. Every word that escapes thee, creeper, is a word of truth and weight. Nathless thy advice for concord, wise preceptor, comes too late. Hope not that the good Yudhishthir will again our friendship own, cheated once by deep Sakuni of his kingdom and his throne. Rugged Bhima will not falter, fatal is the vow he made. Vengeful Arjuna will not pardon, gallant Abhimanyu dead. Fair Draupadi doth her penance, so our ancient matrons say, in our blood to wash her insult, and her proud insulter slay. Fair Subhadra, morn and evening, weeps her dear departed son, feeds Draupadi's deathless anger, for the hero dead and gone. Deeply in their bosoms rankled wrongs and insults we have given. Blood alone can wash it, creeper, such the cruel will of heaven. And the hour for peace is over, for our best sleep on the plain. Brothers, kinsmen, friends, and elders slumber with the countless slain. Shall Duryodhan like a recreant now avoid the deathful strife, after all his bravest warriors have in war surrendered life? Shall he, sending them to slaughter, now survive and learn to flee? Shall he, ruler over monarchs, learn to bend the servile knee? Proud Duryodhan sues no favour, even with his dying breath, unsubdued and still unconquered, changeless even unto death. Shalya, valiant king of Madra, leads our armed hosts today, or to Paris or to conquer, gallant Kripa, lead the way. Meanwhile, round the brave Yudhishthir calmly stood the Pandav force, as the final day of battle now began its fatal course. Brothers, kinsmen, hero warriors, so the good Yudhishthir said, ye have done your share in battle, witnessed countless foemen dead. Said Yudhishthir is your eldest, let him end this fatal strife, slay the last of Kuru chieftains, or surrender throne and life. Bold Satyaki, ever faithful, with his arms protects my right. Drupad's son with watchful valor guards my left with wonted might. In the front doth Bhima battle, careful Arjun guards the rear. I will lead the battle's center, which shall know nor flight nor fear. Truly, on that fatal morning, brave Yudhishthir kept his word. Long and fiercely waged the combat with fair Madra's valiant lord. Thick and fast the arrows whistled, and the lances pointed well. Crashing with the sound of thunder, Shalya's mighty standard fell. Rescued by the son of Drona, Shalya rushed again to war, slew the noble milk-white coursers of Yudhishthir's royal car. And as springs the hungry lion on the spotted jungle deer, Shalya rushed upon Yudhishthir, reckless and unknown to fear. Brave Yudhishthir marked him coming, and he hurled his fatal dart. Like the fatal curse of Brahman, sank the weapon in his heart. Blood suffused his eye and nostril, quivered still his feeble hand. Like a cliff by thunder riven, Shalya fell and shook the land. Ended was the fatal battle, for the Mlesa king was slain. Pierced by angry Sahadev, false Sakuni pressed the plain. All the brothers of Duryodhan, tiger-waisted Bhima slew. Proud Duryodhan, pale and panting, from the field of battle flew. 4. Night of Slaughter. Far from battle's toil and slaughter, by a dark and limpid lake, sad and slow and faint Duryodhan did his humble shelter take. But the valiant sons of Pandu, with the hunter's watchful care, did attract their fallen foemen like a wild beast in its lair. Gods be witness, said Duryodhan, flaming in his shame and wrath. Boy to manhood, ever hating, we have crossed each other's path. Now we meet to part no longer. Proud Duryodhan fights you all. Perish he, or sons of Pandu, may this evening see your fall. Bhima answered, For the insults long endured but not forgiven, me alone you fight, Duryodhan. Witness righteous gods in heaven. Call to mind the dark destruction, planned of old in fine desire, in the halls of Varnavat to consume us in the fire. Call to mind the scheme deceitful, Deep Sakuni's dark device, cheating us of fame and empire by the trick of loaded dice. Call to mind that coward insult and the outrage foul and keen, flung on Drupad's saintly daughter and our noble spotless queen. Call to mind the stainless Bhishma, for thy sins and folly slain, lifeless proud preceptor Drona, Karna lifeless on the plain. Perish in thy sins, Duryodhan, perish too thy hated name, and thy dark life crime polluted ends, Duryodhan, in thy shame. Like two bulls that fight in fury, blind to wounds and oozing blood, like two wild and warring tuskers, shaking all thy echoing wood, like the thunder-wielding Indra, mighty Yama, dark and dread, dauntless Bhima and Duryodhan fiercely strove and fought and bled. Sparks of fire shot from their maces, and their faces ran with blood. Neither won and neither yielded, matched in strength the rivals stood. Then his vow remembered Bhima, and he raised his weapon high. With a foul attack, but fatal, Bhima broke Duryodhan's thigh. Through the sky a voice resounded, as the great Duryodhan fell, and the earth the voice re-echoed over her distant hill and dale. Beasts and birds, in consternation, flew over the land and azure sky. Man below and heavenly Siddhas trembled at the fatal cry. Darkness fell upon the battle, proud Duryodhan dying lay, but the slaughter of the combat closed not with the closing day. Ancient feud and hatred linger after battle's sweeping flood, and the father's deathless anger courseth in the children's blood. Drona slept, and gallant Drupad, for their earthly task was done. Vengeance fired the son of Drona against the royal Drupad's son. Sable shadows of the midnight fell over battle's silent plain. Faintly shone the fitful planets on the dying and the slain. And the vengeful son of Drona, fired by omens dark and dread, stole into the tents of foemen with a soft and noiseless tread. Tristadimya and Sikhandi, princes of Panchal's land, fell beneath the proud avenger of Satyava's reeking hand. Aye, where Drupad's sleeping grandsons, fair Draupadi's children lay, stole the cruel arm of vengeance, smothered them ere dawn of day. Done the ghastly work of slaughter, as Satyava bent his way, where beside the limpid waters lone Duryodhan dying lay. And Duryodhan blessed the hero with his feeble fleeting breath. Joy of vengeance cheered his bosom, and he died a happy death. End of Book 10.